Well, boys and girls, it's time to find out what kind of mischief Loony Coon is up to in Chapter 18, Loony Coon, the Socialite. We held an indignation meeting. Our resolve ran high that Loony Coon was not going to defeat us entirely. "We will have a third campfire party tomorrow night," Dorothy declared. "And I will make a third angel food cake," Sonia volunteered. "Then may I suggest we eat it as an appetizer and get it all down before that thieving Loony Coon can find it?" This was Ginny's idea, and we all agreed. But Mother Nature thought the angel food cake episode had gone far enough. That night she moved in a dull gray cloud that covered the sky from horizon to horizon. The next day, a cold, drenching rain drove across the North Country, banishing from our thoughts all plans for campfire dinners. For 3 days, the storm continued in varying severity. Trees swayed in fitful winds, and the forest dripped. I stretched a canvas over a ridgepole to make a shelter for the raccoons' food. There was no need to worry about the animals themselves. Their thick fur coats are equal to shedding water as well as cold. But their food pans flooded continually and needed protection. One evening, when the storm was at its worst, Ginny and I sat before the fireplace in a dreamy mood. The books we'd been reading rested in our laps, and we listened to the melodious drone of the rain on the cabin roof. Ginny had let our inner door slightly ajar to admit the forest air. Suddenly, we heard the screen door open, and the inner door swung wide. "Well, good evening," Ginny exclaimed. "Sam, we have a guest. Won't you come in?" There stood Loony Coon, wet as a sponge, looking up as much as if to say, "Thank you, I already have." He walked slowly across the room. Ignoring our further greetings, he went to the bookshelf and stood looking over the books as if searching for a certain title. He reached up with his front feet and pawed at the dictionary until it fell to the floor at his feet. Then he began turning the pages. "If you're looking for peanuts, you'll find that under the P's," Ginny suggested. "And angel food cake is under the A's. Or is it?" I asked. Loony Coon was not open to suggestion. Not satisfied with the dictionary, he pulled 2 other books down, then left them on the floor and walked over to us. He accepted a few bites of graham cracker in lieu of his favorite pastry, but did so without much enthusiasm. Apparently it was not food he wanted. I tried him on peanuts, but he showed no interest. "Is this just a social call?" Ginny asked. "Loony Coon, you might have left your overshoes and raincoat at the door." "Yes, and just entered in your bones," I suggested. Loony ambled out into the kitchen, stood up, and sniffed where the cake once sat, just to make sure he wasn't missing anything. Then he returned and came close to the fire, dripping water all the way. He settled down between our chairs with an air of contentment, as though he meant to stay. There was another sound at the screen door now. We looked around to see Big Boy holding it open and looking in. "Come on in, Big Boy," I called. "We were just about to discuss the world situation and the future of bloodsuckers and crawfish. Won't you join us?" By his attitude, Big Boy refused. Holding the door with his powerful foot, he looked at Loony Coon as though saying, "So this is where you are. I go walking my paws off, searching for you everywhere, and you sit there beside a fire. Come out in the woods where a raccoon belongs." But Loony Coon never budged. He gave Big Boy one patronizing look and then turned his attention back to the fire. Big Boy accepted some graham crackers from us, then backed out into the rainy night and disappeared. It was the beginning of a new intimacy with Loony Coon. "He actually likes to be petted," said Ginny, reaching down and scratching his head. "We haven't had many coons who would permit that." Loony Coon stayed with us for over an hour. He approved of the fire and apparently our companionship, too. Presently, we developed a little game. He looked so comfortable, I just had to tease him. I reached down and poked his nose with my finger. With a sort of silly look on his face, he raised one foot and struck at my hand after the manner of a kitten. I poked him again, and he responded the same way. "Don't disturb him," Ginny begged. "He looks so contented. Now let him alone." I was obedient for a moment, but when Ginny became absorbed in her book, I poked his nose with my finger again. Up came that foot. Ginny remonstrated with me and sympathetically stroked Loony Coon's head. "Is he teasing you, Loony?" she asked. "If he doesn't behave himself, we'll put him out in the rain and you and I will enjoy this fire by ourselves." Teasing was such fun, I just couldn't resist. When Ginny looked away, I raised my finger and pointed it at Loony Coon. He made that funny gesture with his foot, though I wasn't even near him. I did it again. So did he. From that time on, every time I pointed my finger at the young coon, he waved that paw in a circle. He kept us in constant laughter. Presently he rose and walked slowly to the door, opened it, and went out into the rainy night. "See," Ginny scolded, "you teased him until he left. Aren't you ashamed?" I went to the door and threw on the floodlight. There stood Loony Coon in the midst of a puddle, rain pelting down on him, looking this way and that as if he didn't know which way to go. "Loony Coon," I called. He looked around. "Look, Loony Coon," I said, pointing my finger at him. He was fully 20 feet away, but up came his paw, swinging in a circle. It was a farewell gesture. He disappeared into the brush, perhaps in search of Big Boy. We learned that he went to the Eck cabin later that same night. They too were enjoying a cabin evening. They had popped corn and were sitting before a lively grate fire. Dorothy was reading aloud from a favorite book. The screen door opened and in came Loony Coon, as wet as if he had been swimming. Sonia was most delighted. She asked him to come in and sit down, and he did, right in front of their fire. He was the center of attention for an hour. Popped corn was offered him, and he ate a few kernels. "Just a neighborly call," said Dick in telling of the experience. He left quietly just as he came. When he got to the door to go out, Sonia reached out her hand and said, "Aren't you going to say goodbye?" Then he did the funniest thing. He raised his paw and waved it in a circle, as if he were saying, "So long." Then he went out. Loony Coon made regular social calls at both cabins after that, and never did he forget the cunning gesture with his paw. I would have loved to have seen that, wouldn't you? Well, that's all for today. Bye now.